Judges are often called to rule on issues that will affect not only the lives and well-being of those who come before them in a particular case, but others not directly or even remotely involved, even for years to come. This is because court rulings become the precedents for future cases. Yet, much to the dismay of the public, judges aren't all-knowing and all-powerful, even though they constantly struggle to decide cases and approach issues they realize will have serious and long-standing consequences on the lives and welfare of many people. As a result, judges make mistakes, and in that way contribute to the imperfections of our system. Although we've worked hard in the judicial process and in creating our laws in this country to assure that they afford the mentally ill due process of law, we still have a long way to go. Our system hasn't always worked as it should to protect the rights of persons suffering from mental illness. Having said that, I caution you that our courts can't possibly provide every answer to every human condition or social ailment. There are no fix-it-all solutions to what are often complex legal and social problems. Can our judiciary and the judicial process be all things to all people? With respect to addressing social ills, the jury is still out on the verdict of whether our judicial system is working. As a Court of Appeals judge, I handled many appeals involving the mentally ill. One of them, in the matter of John D., hit a chord with me on the issue of whether in applying our laws we can solve all of society's problems. This was a case in which a mother appealed the termination of her parental rights to her child, John D. She claimed on appeal that a federal law, the Americans with Disabilities Act, known as the ADA, required the state to provide her with programs and services that would help her be a better parent. She had a long history of chronic mental illness, having been diagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic or as suffering from schizoaffective disorder, bipolar type. The state filed various abuse and neglect petitions, alleging that the child feared his mother because of her abuse and neglect. She was once found in the cafeteria of a mental facility where she was a patient, force-feeding the boy until he vomited. As a result, she became upset, asked the child whether she was going to have to kill him, and then took him into the restroom, where she was seen striking him repeatedly. In an opinion that I authored, our court affirmed the lower court's termination of parental rights, holding that the mother couldn't qualify as a handicapped individual under the federal law, one reason being that she repeatedly refused to take her medications, making it impossible for the state to work with her. I quote from the closing paragraphs of the opinion. "We are mindful of this case's tragic course. We also realize the catch-22 dilemma faced by those individuals involved in this case. This appeal demonstrates the futility we may often experience when our laws prove inadequate or imperfect in addressing certain social problems. The social motives behind both the federal and state laws discussed in this opinion are good ones. Nonetheless, it sometimes happens that in trying to address legislatively the problems of our society's less fortunate, we clearly reveal that our laws cannot always adequately, much less successfully, address every human condition." I'm reminded of a song from the award-winning Broadway musical play and movie, West Side Story. The story takes place in New York City amidst the racial strife and tensions between WASP teenage gang members and their counterparts in the Puerto Rican culture found in the city. In an opening scene, a police officer, Officer Krupke, approaches a gang hanging out in the streets. The officer suggests that they get on home or get a job before they get themselves in trouble. Later, mimicking the policeman, as often happens in musicals, the teenagers break out in a song entitled "Gee, Officer Krupke." In the song, the policeman refers a teenager to the prosecutor. The teenager goes before a judge, who refers the child to the juvenile probation officer, who refers him to a shrink, who refers him to a social worker, who refers him back to the judge. The vicious circle starting all over again. As a law enforcement officer, what role, if any, will you play in this vicious circle? Will you rise to the challenge of trying to stop a victim of the system from going round and round? If you want to do that, I urge you to learn as much as you can about mental illness. Doing that will be but a first step in helping the best judicial system in the world become even better. As a final thought, I offer one person's idea of what the world of the schizophrenic might be like. I'll quote dialogue from a teleplay entitled The Promise, starring James Gardner and James Wood. Wood played the part of a character who suffered from schizophrenia, and Gardner an older brother who reluctantly promised his mother on her deathbed that he'd take care of his brother when she was gone. In that setting, Bobby, the character played by Gardner, was having a difficult time coping with his brother's illness. He found it hard to keep his promise to his dying mother. There was a scene in which Bobby doesn't quite understand why his brother acts the way he does and why he doesn't take his medication so he can be normal. The younger brother, angry and upset by his brother's failure to comprehend, says, "Because you don't know what it's like. Do you want to know? It's like all the electric wires in the house are plugged into my brain. I want to be like everybody else. I want to be like you, Bobby. I've never had a job, never owned a car. I've never lived alone. I've never made love to a woman. And I never will. That's what it's like. You should know that. That's why I'm Hindu, because maybe it's true. Maybe people are born again. And if there's a God, maybe he'll give me another chance. I believe that, because this can't be all I've got."